Hello everybody, it's time for a review that some of you have been eagerly anticipating. I don't know that I have anything new to say about this movie, but here are my thoughts on the original 1933 King Kong. Produced and directed by Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Shadesack from an idea conceived by Cooper and Edgar Wallace, this film starring Fay Wray, Robert Armstrong, and Bruce Cabot introduced horrified audiences to Kong, a giant gorilla dubbed the eighth wonder of the world. This is one of those huge classics that I'm intimidated to review because it's already been discussed by so many people, and when you're talking about a movie this famous and this iconic, where do you start? I won't assume that everyone's seen it though, so we'll start the usual way with a summary. Famed movie maker and adventurer Carl Denham, Robert Armstrong, is bringing a ship loaded with film equipment and explosives to an uncharted island where he plans to shoot a movie. Along on the voyage are Jack Driscoll and Ann Darrow. Driscoll, Bruce Cabot, is a wary first mate who's traveled to exotic locations with Denham before. He doesn't like that this time they're bringing a woman with them, at first because he thinks she'll be a nuisance, but later because he's concerned for her safety. With good reason. Ann Darrow, Fay Wray, is the hungry, hard-on-her-luck young woman with a little acting experience that Denham found when he went searching for a leading lady. Her wide-eyed beauty makes her the perfect candidate for what Denham has in mind. Only partway through the voyage does he reveal what it is they're seeking.
Did you ever hear of Kong?
Kong is a figure of legend, described by the natives as an all-powerful being, neither beast nor man. When they reach the island, however, things don't go according to Denham's plan. The natives take Anne captive and offer her up to Kong as a gift. Kong appears, takes an immediate liking to her, and carries her off. The crew pursues them, but it turns out Skull Island is home to dinosaurs and giant creatures, and most of the men are gruesomely killed. Driscoll is able to rescue Anne and bring her back to the ship, and Denham manages to stun and subdue Kong so he can bring him back to New York City, where he reveals him to an astonished crowd. But Kong, irritated by the flashbulbs and the sight of Anne just beyond his reach, breaks free. He goes on a rampage through the city, recapturing Anne and bringing her all the way up to the top of the Empire State Building. There he puts up a decent fight, but proves no match for the airplanes that zoom around, so after a gentle goodbye to Anne, he falls to his death. This is one of those movies that has a little bit of everything. Action, adventure, thrills and chills. It's quality entertainment for kids and adults alike. Something I realized as I watched it again for the purpose of making this video is that this is the movie that Carl Denham wanted to make. You've got Kong, the breathtaking spectacle who's both monstrous and sympathetic. You've got some crowd-pleasing romance thrown in, as Denham said the public wanted. Anne's first meeting with Kong plays out exactly as he'd envisioned it for her screen test, and several times Denham mentions the Beauty and the Beast theme, which runs all the way through here, from the opening title card to the final line.
Oh, no. It wasn't the airplanes. It was Beauty killed the beast.
Kong is ferocious and deadly, but what makes him more than a monster is his humanity. The legend made him sound like more than an animal, and as we become acquainted with him, we understand why. He is a beast, a terrifying one, but he has relatable attributes and an expressive face. We see his curiosity, his surprise, his capacity for gentleness, and that makes us feel something other than pure victory when he falls to his death. Something the movie is most famous for is its special effects, the work of Willis H. O'Brien, who had made dinosaurs come alive through stop-motion animation 8 years earlier in The Lost World. What was experimental there is further developed and refined here. To audiences in 1933, this was real movie magic, and it's still impressive today. Sure, the tricks of the trade are pretty obvious to jaded 21st century moviegoers, but the groundbreaking achievement here, and the creativity and the patience required to make all this happen, should still be appreciated. One individual who found the effects especially fascinating was young Ray Harryhausen, who would later be mentored by Willis O'Brien and work with him on 1949's Mighty Joe Young, also about a giant gorilla, before eventually becoming the most honored name in stop-motion animation. But I bet Harryhausen was just one of hundreds of young people inspired to go into special effects after watching King Kong. Stop motion in particular is a very interesting process, which, of all the different special effects techniques, seems to me like the most doable from a layman's perspective. Watching this movie, I feel inspired to try it. Another feature that sets the movie apart is Max Steiner's music score. It had been several years since I last watched King Kong, and I'd forgotten that it has an overture, a dreamy, mysterious opening that then erupts into the famous King Kong theme. It's an unconventional way to start this kind of movie, and I doubt that you could get away with it today, but it's a rich piece of music, and the whole score is an essential element to the film. It's also a startlingly violent movie with explicit and implied gore. The motion picture production code passed in 1930, but King Kong squeaked by before Hayes started strictly enforcing it in 1934. Had it come out later, we might have seen a much more toned-down film. Not so much scantily clad Fay Wray, and not so much blood and violence. Multiple people end up crushed, either between Kong's jaws or under his foot. A woman plummets to her death, and there's some creative sound editing there as her screams fade into approaching police sirens. Then there are the dinosaurs. I'm pretty sure when I saw this the first time, I didn't even know about the dinosaurs, so that was a surprise. We see men being chased and charged by multiple dinosaurs, including a surprisingly vicious Brontosaurus. Then there are all the fights. Any creature that gets too close or threatens Anne, Kong fights to the death. That includes a T-Rex he famously destroys by breaking its jaw. The visceral crunch of bone and bloody close-up? Yeah, that's pre-code stuff right there. By the way, I'm pretty sure they don't use the name Skull Island in this film, just Skull Mountain. Similar to Kong himself, the imagery that surrounds him has become iconic, like those huge gates that keep him enclosed, referenced in Jurassic Park, the lair with the giant skull in the background, evidence of Kong's predecessors, the scenic spot where he likes to relax, the swamp and log sets that were used the year before in The Most Dangerous Game, also starring Fay Wray before she dyed her hair, and we're all familiar with the image of Kong hanging off the Empire State Building, the tallest building in the world at the time, completed just 2 years earlier. Some of the behind-the-scenes trivia bits are as interesting as the movie itself, like the fact that Carl Denham is essentially a mirror image of producer-director Marion C. Cooper, who was himself an adventurer, visionary, and filmmaking pioneer, among other things. Or the fact that one of the most famous sequences isn't even in the movie, the deleted spider pit scene. This scene was supposed to take place right after Kong shakes the men off the log. In the final cut, you see them plummet into the ravine, where the way their screams cut off suggests they die on impact. But originally they were shown being attacked and eaten alive by several giant bugs. This scene was described in the novelization of the movie, which came out before its release, and it was shown to preview audiences, an intense sequence which O'Brien was very proud of. But apparently it was too much, because when the movie premiered in theaters, the scene had been cut and presumably destroyed. It's now one of the most famous pieces of lost film in cinematic history. Fortunately, director Peter Jackson not only included his own version of this scene in his 2005 remake of King Kong, but he also went the extra mile and made an amazing recreation of the scene as it might have been in black and white with stop-motion animation based on photographs and artwork that still exist. If it's anywhere close to the original, I can see why they cut it. Yikes! Thanks to this movie's enduring success, King Kong became a major pop culture icon, reappearing several times over the ensuing decades with various new looks and new backstories. That includes the one time that he fought Godzilla in the 60s. There's a train scene here that calls Godzilla to mind, of course. If we use car size as a basis for comparison, Godzilla was clearly bigger than Kong, but both of them have had their height adjusted and increased over the years, especially when a production studio wanted to pit them against each other, as Toho did in 1962 and Legendary will do in 2021. King Kong might not have much in the way of character development or subplot or Academy Award-winning performances, though Fay Wray more than earned her title as first screen queen. But it has some of the most thrilling, well-paced, well-made action sequences to come out of old Hollywood, and one of the most memorable so-called monsters to ever appear on the big screen. There was a sequel, Son of Kong, released the same year. I've never seen it, so I'm going to check that out at some point. I'm not going to do a King Kong review series, but I do plan to review Toho's King Kong Escapes, and I should probably give Kong Skull Island a rewatch before the sequel comes out, whenever it comes out. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you like, feel free to share your thoughts on this version of King Kong in the comments below. I look forward to reading them, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.